Happy football season, everybody. Let's get this. We're coming to you live from the capital city of the great state of Texas, overlooking downtown Austin and the University of Texas. Welcome to the weekly broadcast that understands the pride and tradition of the Texas football program will never be entrusted to the timid or the weak. This is the Eyes on Texas. Our eyes are on the Longhorns, a 37-10 win over the Rice Owls to start the 2023 season. We are a product of the Republic of Football on Dave Campbell's Texas Football Podcast Network, also powered by our presenting partners at Grande Equipment and our 5 founding partners who we'll tell you about throughout our episode today. I'm Aaron Hogan, morning show host at The Horn here in Austin, hornfm.com, the Horn app, best way to find us. And he is the senior writer at Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, who's already stirred the pot and made some Longhorn fans mad on social media, being a wise guy.
Not hard to do.
He is Mike Craven.
At Craven Mike on Twitter.
At Craven Mike on Twitter.
Yeah. If you don't follow me, I don't see it because I have that muted.
Good.
That's the best option on Twitter, right?
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you can make it to where you don't see mentions from people you don't follow and who don't follow you. So I didn't know that tweet that I made became a big deal until like somebody that I actually know retweeted. And then I looked at it and was like, oh my God, people are really mad at me.
Well, we got to find out, tease that. We'll do a radio tease here, Mike. We'll talk about the tweet you sent out. I thought it was quite harmless, but everybody's a little sensitive these days. Everybody gets a little sensitive.
Everything's an argument, and everybody's always mad and trying to own people and stuff. It's very weird.
He is our digital producer, Nolan Hogan. He's got a fantasy football draft in about 50 minutes. So we'll see if we can knock this thing out, and he can be on the clock at pick number 5. It's a league with Craig Way and a bunch of guys I used to work with in radio. So he's taken my place. I've handed the team. I've bequeathed the team to him because I can't have 3 teams. I have 2 other teams I'm already in that I've been in my neighborhood one, and the one I've been in since the 90s with a bunch of UT guys.
What a dream as a father. To hand over your fantasy football reputation.
Yes. Don't ruin it, kid.
Yeah.
No. So he's got to get to that. But we're looking forward to talking some Texas football. The talking season is over. Actual games to discuss. Here on the multicast that keeps you on top of all things Texas football. We call it a multicast because it's available to watch weekly on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube channel. Also on the Horn FM, horn.com's channel at The Horn. Austin, that's where you find the YouTube page there. It's also available for download to listen to when you're working out or working on iTunes and Spotify. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Eyes on Texas FB, on Instagram at Eyes on Texas Pod, and on Facebook we are live as well at Eyes on Texas Podcast. We are ready to go. Mike, you like my 40 Acres Collection
That's nice
shirt that I got? It's exclusively at the Co-op. Thank you to Jeff and the team there. Got us some nice gear to wear on the broadcast, so excited about that. And before we start and talk some Texas football and a win in their opener, let's thank our presenting partner at Grande Equipment, our great friend Wes Murray in Weston. His team understands your reputation is all you have when it's project time. You need that heavy equipment, large or small. They do major freeways and toll roads, and then they can help you out at the lease and then the ranch and things you need there. If you have a project, they're going to get it there. That's why they've operated for 31 years. They're not in the equipment business. They are in the relationship business. Right piece of equipment for your project or plenty of equipment. They'll get it there, job site ready, no hassle. And remember, they're an independent heavy equipment company. So they work with all major manufacturers. They're not locked into one. A lot of companies are locked into a specific brand, not Grande. Caterpillar, John Deere, Komatsu, Volvo, more heavy equipment sales and rentals. That's Grande Equipment. Also that great new renewable energy sector that is really growing throughout the state, throughout the country, and all over the world. Grande is your international independent dealer. Find them at grandeequipment.com. Remember, Grande doesn't overpromise. They over-deliver. If you've seen our previous 19 episodes, you know we break the EOT, the Eyes on Texas, into 4 quarters, just like a football game. At second quarter, we're going to talk about the performance of that Texas defense on Saturday, as good as we've seen in quite a while. Dominant. Longhorns played as many as 30 or more than 30 players, and there was never really a drop-off from the level of play. That tells you how deep that Texas defense is. At halftime, it's all things Longhorns in the NFL. We'll run down more than 30 Lifetime Longhorns who have made NFL rosters as the NFL season opens this weekend. In our third quarter, we'll discuss Steve Sarkisian, Quinn Ewers, and the deep ball dilemma, Mike Craven. After one game that's already back, they go deep a lot. They don't hit them a lot, and that is a conversation. Fourth quarter, it's our Final Four, the 4 big debates and questions coming out of Week 1 of the college football season, including Mike Craven's trip to Fort Worth and that incredible TCU game with Colorado, the Buffaloes, and Deion Sanders making it happen.
That was wild.
That was wild. And you were there. Did you go to the Deion press conference afterwards?
Absolutely.
You had to be there.
Absolutely. I was on Deion watch.
And he said, you guys are supposed to be over there. Y'all didn't believe this.
Yep.
Y'all didn't believe this.
Yep.
But that was cool. I can't wait to talk to you about that. and the other big stories from college football. But let's kick it off with our first quarter presented by the TexasMortgageGuy.com. Carlos Carrion. That's Carlos, and remember, it's the TexasMortgageGuy.com online. We'll tell you more about him coming up. But Steve Sarkisian and Longhorns win the game 37-10. A sputtery first half where the Longhorns scored 16 points on offense, one touchdown. On a Jonathan Brooks run. Can we play the one touchdown, Nolan? This was the one touchdown for the Longhorns. Horns came out, actually went for it on fourth down, Mike, on the first drive, and you could kind of see some nerves, maybe just first game jitters. And they went for it on fourth down. On third down, Quinn Ewers rolled to his right and kind of slipped. And then they went for it on fourth and a yard and a half. And Quinn Ewers again rolled right and had J.T. Sanders, but some pressure got to him, and he threw the ball at the knees of J.T. Sanders. So the Longhorns gave up the ball at the 30-yard line. Rice couldn't move the ball. They actually went backwards and kicked a field goal. And they didn't score again until 3 minutes to go in the game. So the defense did their job. But from that point, Mike, in the first half and first quarter and a half, the Texas offense just kind of sputtered, except for this play right here. This was the best offensive play of the first half. It was a nice design by Sark, everything flowing to the left and come back to the right to Jonathan Brooks, the running back from Hallettsville, a play we saw very similar to a play we saw in the Alamo Bowl against Washington. Here was that play on Fox TV last Saturday.
Quinn Ewers back at the controls. He will roll and spin and throw it for Jonathan Brooks, and the sophomore tailback is gone. Touchdown, Texas.
All right, so that was the best play, the most dynamic play of the first half. There were also trips into the red zone that ended with field goals. Bert Auburn made all three. He looked good kicking the ball, but the third down conversions weren't there. The running game wasn't really strong. Mike, what'd you make of the performance? Just start with the first half for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a Texas team that was playing Rice, and it can be hard to get
Alabama
motivated that way. Right, yeah, you've been looking ahead to week 2, since January or February.
Whether you'll say it or not publicly.
Right, I mean, they're humans, they know who they're playing week 2 and they know who they're playing week 1, right? And so none of this really, I guess my larger point is none of this really matters if they come out and beat Alabama the same way as none of it would have mattered if they won 70-0 if they go and lose bad to Alabama. And so for me, I see this as a preseason scrimmage. The way that the NFL gets 4 or 5 of those, college football gets 1, and you usually put it in week 1, and you pay another team a lot of money to come get beat pretty bad. And that's what Texas did. And they looked sloppy. They looked like a team that was playing in their first game that hadn't played a lot of football in a while. And I think that's understandable. They started getting going. I thought that last drive in the first half, when they go on, a 16-play, 66-yard drive and set up that field goal with no time remaining, it felt like they were starting to get into a rhythm there. And then we'll talk about the second half in a little bit. But, they came out and played well in the second half. But the first half, they just kind of looked like a team who had to figure out that they were in a football game and that this other team was going to play pretty well. And, Rice wasn't just a complete shove over, and that offensive line needed some time to kind of get motivated and get going.
Yeah, and then the third quarter is when they kicked in gear. And, we'll hear Sark here in our first quarter talking about the offensive line and protection issues, especially in the middle. Rice copied a lot of what Baylor did at the end of last year, those amoeba fronts where they put 7 men at the line and you're not sure who's going to come and who's going to drop. Baylor did that last year with Dave Aranda and gave Quinn Ewers and that offensive line some fits. Rice came in with a lot of that. And Sark said yesterday, or on Saturday and again today at his press conference, that they hadn't seen that on film from Rice. So that kind of caught them off guard. And you'll hear Sark later in the show coming up in our third quarter talking about they need to be more physical. They didn't impose their will on Rice. And I know that's concerning for a lot of Longhorn fans. Sark believes that they can be a lot more physical than they were in that game. I think you just said it, maybe the look-ahead factor. I would also point out, and this isn't an excuse because this is the all-gas, no-excuses season for the Longhorns, but there was an on-field thermometer that measured 160 degrees. So, again, they're both playing in it, both teams, but you're a 330-pound lineman with all the pads. That can be a tough conversation. And Rice was the more aggressive team on the defensive side of the ball against the Texas offense. Texas defense, different story. We'll get to that coming up in our second quarter. Here's Sark's opening statement at the press conference after the game, talking about what he had liked about the game and his concerns.
Okay. I think first thing, one thing I talked about to the team in our very first team meeting when we came back to start training camp, and the same thing I referenced to him last night, and the same thing I said to him at halftime, I said to him after the game is, one thing I really like about this team is that we're very versatile. We are not one-dimensional where we have to win certain games one particular way. And today was, I think, indicative of that. I think the majority of the people that walked in the stadium thought that game was going to go a certain way, when in reality, our defense played a fantastic football game. And there's not always a lot of talk about how good we are defensively. And I think we always like to talk about what's happening offensively, but to think we held them, I think, to 60 yards in the first half, created 3 turnovers, got a really big 4th and 1 stop. Jalen Ford continues to make impactful plays. I thought our defensive front did exactly what they've been doing all training camp long, which is play dominant football. And then we minimized the explosive plays. And so that part of it was really good, because in the first half offensively, I thought we moved the ball decent, especially between the 20s, and just for whatever reasons, probably some self-inflicted wounds, stalled out as we kind of hit that fringe high red zone area and didn't convert a couple 4th downs. And when you want to be an aggressive football team, you got to take those chances, and the goal is you got to convert more than you don't. And we didn't get that done today. I think we were 1 for 3 on 3rd down. Ideally, you want to be 3 for 3, at worst 2 for 3. So that didn't go our way. But the first one we get stopped on, our defense goes out, gets a stop, forces a field goal. So we won a way today that I don't think most people thought that's how we would win that game. And so for me, there's a lot of encouragement in that we can win games in different styles. I thought the beauty of it was in the 3rd quarter, we kind of got things rectified offensively, had 3 drives, 3 touchdowns, very efficient. Thought Xavier kind of set the tone with a lot of that. He had a nice punt return, made some plays in the passing game. We just felt like it had a little better rhythm to what we were doing. So I will say this, we got a lot of things to clean up, which is understandable coming out of the first game. Now we have to make sure we identify those things really well as a coaching staff, get our players bought into what needs to get cleaned up and get fixed so that we can improve our quality of play. And, that's always the goal week in and week out, but especially coming out of week 1. And you'd like to think you make your most strides from week 1 to week 2, and we got plenty of things to clean up on that front.
All right, Steve Sarkisian, a versatile team that is being built to win in all phases, right? If you put it all together, and as you said, they go out and play Alabama this week, and the offense is clicking, and you've ironed out some of that sloppiness, playing more physical. You got to see C.J. Baxter flash, and Jonathan Brooks, and even Jaden Blue look like a player running back. You get those things ironed out, and you add that to the defense. That's what this team is built for, to be good in all phases and potentially great in all phases.
Yeah, you're not going to have your A-plus game every single Saturday, and probably not the first Saturday out of the gates. There's a lot of expectations on this team, and they know that. And they came out, and it felt like a team that was kind of, it's like a boxing match. That first couple of rounds, they were trying to feel it out and see who they were and what they were about. And so, I don't think it's overly concerning. I feel like we overreact to week 1 a lot. They beat a decent football team by a wide margin. It was never in doubt. And when they got going out of halftime, they were able to regroup and come out of halftime. They go touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Yeah.
And so, to me, that's kind of the thing I take away from this football game is once they got that first half jitters out of the way, they settled in, they played a heck of a football game, and they stayed healthy, and you move on to Alabama.
Well, and that's the good news here on the Eyes on Texas multicast. C.J. Baxter left that game after his 38-yard run. It was a really nice, saw some of that vision, that cutback ability we saw from C.J. in high school in Orlando. Big back, but boy, he can get backside if you block it well, and he did, got out the gate, and then went down hard. It looked like it might have been a shoulder, which was the initial concern. Turns out it's a rib. May have fallen on the ball a little bit or something.
He fell on his elbow, and his elbow went into his rib in a way.
Sark said he fell on the ball, but the ball was in the other hand, so it really was his elbow. Unfortunately, it's not a shoulder. He was back at practice Sunday and Monday. Yeah. So C.J. Baxter will play against Alabama, and they'll need him. They need that big between the tackles back. Jonathan Brooks still, to me, looks like he's better on the perimeter, even though he had some nice runs. Jaden Blue's more of a perimeter player, so is Keelan Robinson. They need that C.J. Baxter, 6'1", 220-pound presence against this Alabama team, without a doubt. Agree with you. And sloppy was the word in the first half. Even on those 4th downs, I mentioned Quinn Ewers just threw a bad ball. And then on the other 4th down, Gunnar Helm and A.D. Mitchell quite honestly missed blocks. Just missed them. I mean, you got to get a hat on a hat in a 4th and 2 situation if you're going tight like that. And 2 guys miss blocks, you're going to keep a free runner and you're not going to get it. And that stuff, Sark, you'll hear him coming up, talk about how we can clean that up. We can fix that on top of being more physical. But let's hear Sark after the game talking about Quinn and his confidence and what he saw. To your point, Mike, the thing that you liked is they didn't beat their head against the wall, right? They could tell that the offensive line was struggling with some of what they were seeing from Rice. And I would say this about Rice. I said this going into the game. It felt like a really good opener. It's year 6 for the head coach. He's built the program kind of methodically. They've got their best group. You covered them, wrote a story for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Now, this team can't compete with Texas for 4 quarters, but for a quarter and a half, 2 quarters, they got some good players and a good coach who had a good game plan. So this made Texas respond. This made Texas, didn't this all come easy like you saw Oklahoma play Arkansas State and against Butch Jones, and Butch Jones was crying on the sidelines.
I think an important point is Rice game plan for this game for 8 months.
Yeah.
Like this is what they gave in front of their team and workouts in March and in April. Like, you're playing Texas week 1. You better figure this out and get in the weight room and know your playbook. And we could get embarrassed, and they watched Texas film. And they brought in Derek Mason as an analyst in the offseason. He came
From
in.
Vanderbilt.
And he came, him and Bloomgren are really close. And he came in and helped the defense kind of put some stuff together. So I would imagine they brought up some exotic things for Texas. Flat, you reverse that to Texas, and they didn't do that for Rice.
No.
They're doing that for Alabama. Like, even if they won't say it out loud, that coaching staff has watched Alabama tape in June and July. They're not watching Rice tape in June and July.
Right.
So they went vanilla, Rice went exotic, and that allowed Rice to kind of be on the front foot in the first quarter and a half.
Well, think about this for those numbers on the offensive side for people concerned. Yes, the offensive line needs some improvement this week without a doubt, especially clean up the inside. Tackles both look pretty darn good, but one of the offensive signatures of a Steve Sarkisian offense is motion, fly motion. They completed 1 pass to a player who was in motion at the snap. That's going to be a lot different this week, right? There's going to be a lot that they're going to add. They didn't show much of anything in this game. There was no make the defense react to us on our motion packages, and not a lot of empty sets, not a lot of things you're going to see. I believe that the play we just saw with the touchdown to Jonathan Brooks, that's a throwback play. They've shown it now in back-to-back games. They're going to run something off of that looks like it's that play again for Alabama, and it's going to go somewhere else, right? That's the kind of stuff you're setting up. That was the one somewhat exotic play. And then second half, when things were closer than they needed to be, and I would also say in the first half, Mike, to your point, if Jonathan Brooks catches a touchdown pass, a ball across the middle where he's wide open, he walks in the end zone, he has 2 touchdown catches, and the score at the half's a little bit different. The rabble and the exhausted crowd's not so bad. And then second half, you're right. I mean, the Longhorns, to Sark's point, they held Rice to 60 yards in the first half. And then they came out and made 3 straight 3-and-outs and got the ball back, and the offense went to work, and it went to RPO. They just went quick game RPO. Can we play some of these, Nolan? Let's say they play the first one. This was the first touchdown pass or the first scoring drive of the second half. I believe this was the A.D. Mitchell touchdown catch. A.D. Mitchell, they get the ball after they get a 3-and-out, get the ball moved down, and this is A.D. Mitchell's first touchdown catch as a Longhorn off play action, off RPO.
With Sanders in motion. Ewers to throw down the middle. And Mitchell, touchdown.
All right, so there's Adonai Mitchell, not Adonai as we've been calling him. He made that clear last week. So A.D. Mitchell, nice route, the out route back into the post, and single coverage. That's going to be a problem because he's going to see a lot of single coverage, especially the way Xavier Worthy's playing. He had 90 yards in receiving, X-Man did. And really, I thought jump-started them in the third quarter with a big catch and run, also had a big punt return. So the Longhorns get a stop, get the ball back. And then it's J.T. Sanders, Nolan. Let's fire this one up. J.T. Sanders, this was a play that they had run earlier in the game, and I think they saw that Rice blew the coverage. And J.T. Sanders, we come back to that same formation, same look. This thing's going to be wide open. And again, Mike, off RPO.
When you can play 12 dudes and you defeat the line of scrimmage, you often win.
Right down the middle. Jatavion Sanders is free. And a touchdown. Hold on to your hat.
Again, that's Fox TV or Fox Big Fox with the call on Saturday. J.T. Sanders can move. He was running away from people there.
That's a 5-star recruit. There's a reason that people thought, he's going to be a first-round draft pick. He's such a weapon. You talk about Xavier Worthy. We talk about A.D. Mitchell and what they're able to do on the outside. We didn't even mention Jordan Whittington and what he can do. And then you add a Sanders in there. Plenty of weapons. It's going to be tough for defenses.
And then one more, Nolan. This was the third touchdown of the third quarter. After one touchdown in the whole first half and a bunch of field goals and some red zone sloppiness, it was 3 straight touchdowns that broke the game open. And this was Quinn Ewers, which I think is also important to put on tape for Alabama, that on the zone read plays in the red zone, he will keep the ball and will take it to the house.
Sideline, 1st and goal. Brooks the tailback, and Ewers keeps it.
Hook 'em.
Little dance step from the more.
Hook 'em. Yeah, he got the boom mic. He got the boom mic, so the whole crowd heard that. Hook 'em. So Quinn Ewers, who everybody was rattling about in the first half, came back, played a really strong second half, and I think it's pretty clear, Mike, he's better with the quick passing game.
I mean, he was 19 of 30 for 260 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interception. Right? I mean, it was a good game. Like, it was a fine game. We'll talk about it later in the show. You want him to be able to find the vertical game and to figure that out. But even if Texas doesn't have that, this is an offense that can still be really good because of the weapons we just discussed.
Yeah, and they were out of sync. I mean, they never got into rhythm. And I did not know the Derek Mason piece, which is a great, which is why I love doing the podcast with you here on the EOT, because you know that Derek Mason he was a head coach at Vanderbilt. He's seen as one of the better defensive minds. Was at Oklahoma State, and he had all off season to throw something together Texas hadn't seen. And clearly, Texas, with a look ahead, very vanilla game plan, played kind of right into what Rice was doing. It's not an excuse. It just that was the game plan. And Texas, but as Sark just said about the versatility, we can win in a lot of ways. We didn't let them move the ball at all. We held them to 60 yards until they went on a long drive. The Gamblers were frustrated at the end of this game because Texas had a chance to cover the 35-point number, and Malik Murphy hit Jonte Cook on his first catch as a collegian. The Jonte Cook, the rookie freshman out of DeSoto, got it down to about at the 11-yard line. Then the Longhorns had back-to-back penalties. They actually had a penalty on the play that Jonte caught the ball, which was a pick route, right? Yeah. Pass interference offensively, so they dropped it back. Then they had another penalty, which dropped it back. Well, it was 1st and 40. They end up having to try to kick with Malik Murphy in. They end up trying to kick a long field goal, 56 yards. It's short. Didn't make it. Bert Auburn doesn't have that leg, and that would have covered the line. And then Rice took the ball and went on a 9-minute drive, their only drive of the game. 9 minutes, and by the time they scored their only touchdown, it was 3 minutes to go, under 3 minutes to go in the game, and Longhorns weren't going to cover that line. It was that close, Mike. That's why you don't gamble.
I'm a big gambler, so this is going to sound hypocritical to a lot of people, but I think the line has skewed how we judge football a lot of times. Like, we view success and failure based on if a team covered or not. But Texas pretty much won that game by 34 points. They dominated that team while the starters were in. They're up by 30. It was a great game. I mean, they're fine.
Yeah, and but by the rub route, the pick route penalty on Texas was on a walk-on that you're not going to see on the field again really all year, I don't think. But let's hear Sark one more on the offensive side. This is on the offensive line in the run game and what was struggling. Because, again, if you can't run the ball against Rice and push them, that's concerning. But you said it. I think those amoeba fronts, the Derek Mason defense, confused Texas. They missed a lot of blocks, and they were thinking a little bit too much. Here is Sark on what he saw. This was on Saturday, so we'll have more from Sark on what he's after watching the tape. But on Saturday's immediate reaction to his offensive line.
Yeah, I think from an O-line perspective, I thought it was fine. We got a lot of different stuff today. That's always one of the challenges in week one. You never really know. And when a team does something dramatically different than what's on tape, you got to make those adjustments, not just as a staff, but the players need to. And I thought we found some rhythm in the running game. I thought the protection got better as we went along. So on that front, do I want it to be better? Of course I do. Like, that aspect, I'm always striving for it to be better. But I do understand where some of the mishaps might have come. And so we got to get that cleaned up, because if not, some of the same things we saw today, we will continue to see. CJ obviously had that nice run. And I think what it looked like is he landed on the ball and kind of had a rib issue that we just wanted to make sure we were getting checked out. So I'm hopeful it's not serious, but we don't know for sure yet.
All right, there's Sark. We'll hear more from Sark about it now that he's seen the tape and how they're going to plan for Alabama coming up in our third quarter coming up. And remember, this is the week, Mike, where we had a second recording every week to the Eyes on Texas multicast. This one is being recorded on Labor Day Monday. We're laboring for you, and then we will do another one on Thursday. It'll drop on Friday. And that'll be a full preview of the Alabama game. So in this one, we're not going to do a lot of Alabama. Coming up Thursday, another will drop, and we'll go knee deep into this huge game in Tuscaloosa. Steve Sarkisian going back to Bryant-Denny Stadium where he coached for so long. Overall, Mike, I think you've said it. The offense, probably a C performance in the first half. Give him an A in the third quarter. And all in all, a lot to build on. But in the end of the day, when your defense plays like that, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that they stayed healthy. And if you're going to have that miscommunication and some missed blocks in the front, you want it to be in week 1 and get it out of the way and get it on tape. Be able to point to some guys out. I mean, maybe it's a good thing moving forward. So, I mean, I just think the negativity around week 1 is always weird. It's for every fan base, too. It's not just a Texas.
Yeah. Colorado's going to win the national championship, and Texas is going to go 7-5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After week 1. But, again, it's week 1. I think you laid it out. Let's tell you about our first quarter partner. We talk about our founding partners. This was our first ever partner, Carlos Carrion, the Texas mortgage guy. Heard we were doing this and said, man, I want to be a part of that. Love Longhorn football. Love what you guys do. So when it's time for a new mortgage, go with Carlos. Can't recommend him enough. Almost a decade in the business. And if you're going to make a decision like that, it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll make in your life. Buying a home, refining your house, buying a rental property. Go with Carlos every single time. He's a diehard Longhorn fan like you, but he's lived in Austin his whole life. Knows this market like the back of his hand and the real estate side of it and the mortgage side of it. So you're working with someone who you have common interest with. You can talk football, but get this thing done. Carlos is the best. Again, a diehard Longhorn fan, a decade in the industry, not here to just provide you a quote, but guide you through this tough situation right now. It's still time to buy a house because these prices aren't going down. The mortgage rates are higher than you want them to be, but now is still the time to get into those houses. I promise you, years from now, you'll thank yourself that you did. Here, he is your guide to help solve those problems, strategize one of the most important financial decisions of your life. Great communicator, fast response times. You can call him or just go to the website, TexasMortgageGuy.com. That's TexasMortgageGuy.com. My good friend Carlos Carrion. Second quarter delivered by the Great Times and good, wonderful food. The Scratch Comfort Food at Hayes City Store and Ice House. Absolute destination location in Driftwood, Texas. We're going to tell you about them coming up. But, Mike, the defensive dominance, we talked about a little bit in quarter 1. Let's pick up on it again. And just how darn good this defense was. Tavondre Sweat had 5 tackles, and if he and Byron Murphy are going to play like that, and look, that's not an outlier. Sark talked about those guys wrecking their scrimmages in the training camp. If those two dudes are going to play like that, and then you add a guy like Ethan Burke, who played like a maniac on the outside, setting the edge, I was really surprised and impressed to see Chris Ross. Christopher Ross, a redshirt freshman from North Shore. He was playing off the edge wearing number 97 and quick twitch, first step. These guys got a lot of dudes up front that can wreak havoc.
Tavondre Sweat's such a joy to watch play football.
Yeah.
He's like literally a dancing bear out there, just like
360.
crushing people, playing with a lot of joy. He's a better pass rusher than I think a lot of you see him on the box score in the 2 deep, and you're like, well, he must just be a nose tackle, run the
stuff the run.
plugger, doesn't. But like he is so good getting upfield, and he has been since he was in Huntsville. He was a big sack getter back at Huntsville High School. I'm going to say something that I don't know if is a hot take or not, but the starters for the Texas defensive line in the interior, at least, are better than they were last year.
Agreed.
Like the combination of Murphy and Sweat is better than Ojimo and Coburn. And so for me, it's about if Texas can develop those guys after that. And if so, they go from having the best interior defensive line in 2022 and probably in the nation, at least in the Big 12, to probably the exact same thing, maybe even better in 2023. They were incredible. It starts up there, and Bo Davis and the job he's done is there. The difference between the Texas defensive line pre-Bo Davis speech and post-Bo Davis speech is awesome, right? Like it is tough love personified.
Well, and you got to think, Texas's offensive line has been dealing with those guys all through camp. These big monsters. Now all of a sudden you got this little rice group that's like kind of running around like butterflies, trying to kind of outrun them. Maybe that was part of the problem on their side of the ball. But either way, yeah. And, Jim Nagy, who is the director of the Senior Bowl, had an interesting tweet during the offseason talking about what you just said. I mean, Coburn and Ojimo got drafted late on day 3 of the NFL draft, but he believes that Murphy, Collins, Alfred Collins for sure, even Tavondre Sweat have higher ceilings and maybe higher drafted players. And then you had a guy like Vernon Broughton, who graded out in Pro Football Focus at over 81. He brought a presence, and you saw Chris Ross in high school. This guy's really good.
Yeah, he's a run stuffer. He can make some plays up the field. Deceptively athletic. So Texas needs to be good on the offensive line and defensive line. And on paper, There's not better position units like that have grown under Sark. Like they've gotten so much better up front, and it all starts up there. And that makes Jalen Ford's job easier. That makes the safeties and cornerbacks job much easier. And then the emergence of Ethan Burke could be the difference between this team or this defense being good to really good or being great. And if he can play like that on a week in, week out basis, all of a sudden they got something now.
Yeah, and he won the job, right? When the depth chart came out on Saturday, he was the number one edge player opposite Barron Sorrells. There was no or. It was him, then Justice Finkley at the number 2. But, man, they're going to play all those guys. And by halftime, they had played over 30 defensive players, Mike. And the thing I was so impressed with was there was no drop-off at all. I mean, whoever was coming on the field, it just felt like it was the starters again. And that was at every level. Let's see some of the highlights from Fox TV again. Appreciate them for providing it. This is, Nolan, what do we have? The sack from Benda. Let's do that. This was when they came, and this was really a sack that was credit to David Benda, who earlier on that same drive gave up the only big play Rice had in the game. They had a nice play call where Bloomgren and the quarterback, J.T. Daniels, flowed everything to the right and then cut across with his own. And David Benda just lost his eyes, got caught looking in the backfield. But then he made up for it with this play. And just watch the jailhouse here. Byron Murphy's the one that really created this, because it was Rod Babers this morning, Mike, when we were doing the show on the Horn on Labor Day, saying that Tavondre Sweat playing at that level will demand a double team.
Yes.
From everybody, including Alabama, which gives Byron Murphy single team. Byron Murphy, who's all Big 12 kind of player, All-American caliber player, is going to get single team most of the time. That's a problem. And then Ethan Burke's going to get single teamed. And then, this is what this defensive line can be. Here is what you saw with the big sack. I think it was the first sack of the year for Texas. This was credited to David Benda.
On this roster for Rice out of Houston, Texas. Oh boy, a swarm of burnt orange in the kisser of J.T. Daniels. There is Benda.
So you want to go in.
Playing quarterback, I mean, those guys, they earn their chops, man.
They earn their chops. Well, they had
scary
like 4
stuff.
dudes hitting him on that play.
It was like 1,000 pounds of dude sacking J.T. Daniels.
Well, and then let's see this. And you mentioned that we were talking about the interior D-line being so good. Well, now you have Jalen Ford playing his brand of middle linebacker, a guy who I thought should have been the Defensive Player of the Year in the conference a year ago, picking up right where he left off. This was J.T. Daniels trying to force a third down and long. It was like 3rd and 17. And Jalen Ford knows this all too well. They're not going to run the ball here. I got to play coverage. And here's another one of those classic one-handed interceptions from number 41.
3rd and 16. Got to get all the way down to the 36. Daniels tapped and intercepted. He had 4 last year, and Jalen Ford has one in the opener this year. The best intercepting linebacker in the conference last year.
There you go. Great play right there. And there was one other interception. Can we play this one too, Nolan? This was Austin Jordan. And this is why the game should have been blown out in the first half and why Texas fans are frustrated, because they had all the stops. They had all the turnovers. They had the red zone. I mean, they could have covered the spread in the first half if the offense hadn't been sputtering and Rice hadn't played a pretty good brand of defense there that I think surprised Texas. But here's the other interception from the first half.
Of college football last year in TCU as Rice and J.T. Daniels have the ball back, but not for long. Intercepted. Austin Jordan for Texas gets it right back.
All right, so there is Austin Jordan out of Denton Ryan, I believe. So, yeah, a lot of depth in the secondary, a lot of depth on the defensive front. I think there's still a little question at linebacker, but Jalen Ford is as good as there is in the country. I think Jalen Ford was the Defensive Player of the Week announced today by Pro Football Focus. He graded out almost 92 for what he does. What our friend Rod Babers calls it the central nervous center of your defense, to have that guy in the middle with those tackles and then Jalen Catalon and the safety, Jade Barron. This is a very, very good group right up the middle.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely great. That question, or the only question really is the guy next to him. And, I think those dudes are going to get better. Those young guys are going to get better and better as the season gets on. David Benda has always had the potential, but he also has the potential to do kind of the play you were talking about where he just kind of has a brain fart a few times.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of what's kept him off the field consistently. But if he can figure out that part out, he's as talented as anybody on the roster, and he always has been since the Cinco Ranch days.
Well, coming up on our next edition this week, we'll talk about Alabama and Jalen Milroe, a former Texas commitment. They're going to have a plan for Milroe and his legs. There's no doubt about that. Who spies? How do they deal with a running quarterback, which they've struggled with, but they've got a lot of pieces. How about Anthony Hill trying to chase around Jalen Milroe with his athleticism? Ethan Burke. Somebody suggested to us this morning that Ethan Burke, former lacrosse player with his athleticism, could stand up and be the spy if you need him to. You could have multiple guys because you don't want Nick Saban knowing who that spy is, right? You want to disguise the spy if you're going to do that for Jalen Milroe. But real quick, in our second quarter, brought to you by TheTexasMortgageGuy.com. Let's hear Sark, his thoughts after the game about the dominance of his defense.
Yeah, no, it really has been, where, I think at the end of the day, when you can play really stout front defense and you can play tight coverage and you can minimize the explosive plays, that makes it hard offensively. And that's what our defense has been doing. I think we've got a really good scheme. Like I said, I've talked a lot about our staff continuity over there, and I think the line of communication amongst the coaches and the players is really clean. And we're playing to our strengths. And like I said, we've got a really good front. We've got a veteran inside linebacker who can kind of manage a lot of that. And we've got a really deep secondary, and we were able to rotate a lot of players back there today. And that was really encouraging. We were able to affect the quarterback. We were able to really kill the run. And that's winning football. On the end of the day, if to go win a championship, you got to play great defense. And we started off on the right foot today.
All right, to go win a championship in the all-gas, no excuses season, you got to play great defense. Great start. Great start, Mike.
Yeah, great start. Defense came out from that opening snap. And you always wonder, if a team's going to play with their food early on.
Yeah.
And Texas, at least on the defensive side of the ball, came out and made a statement early that you're not going anywhere and we're the physically dominant team here. And so they did everything that I think the Texas fans wish they had seen the offensive line do. But, if you can play – defense travels – right, and that can be a little bit more consistent than the offense. Offense is about rhythm and timing and a lot of different factors. But that's going to keep you in a lot of games, and that's going to win you a lot of Big 12 games, especially if you can play defense like that.
Defense travels, run game travels. We'll talk more about that coming up because Sark was not pleased after watching the film about the physicality of his offensive line. Also a change that Sark has made this year for his quarterback, Quinn Ewers. We'll get into the Sark, Quinn Ewers deep ball discussion coming up. And, the change that was made that I think can help Quinn Ewers and maybe help this week when, things were sputtering in that first half. Boy, that third quarter, 3 straight 3-and-outs, 3 straight touchdowns, 21 quick points. That's the capability of this team. But everything you saw in the first half is what's concerning about Texas with the offensive line in the interior. Quinn Ewers still maybe looking like and reverting to some old habits at times. We'll talk about that coming up. That's our second quarter. It's brought to you by Hayes City Store, and the Ice House on the outside is open for business every day. They're ready to serve you and your family some of that scratch comfort food. It is so good. They're open every day, offering seating on their beautiful patio under the canopy of oak trees. Even if it's hot like it has been, they've got the big fans and the misters blowing. It's still a really, really great atmosphere. Watching games in their outdoor sports bar. And they have the indoor if you're looking for the AC. Hayes City Store and Ice House quickly becoming famous for their scratch Texas comfort food. They have wood-fired pizzas, house-ground burgers that are awesome. The chicken fried steak is as big as a plate. The truck stop enchiladas are amazing. There's not a bad thing on the menu there at Hayes City Store. Over 53 beers on tap, cold drinks as well. It's 8989 FM 150 in Driftwood, Texas. Hayes City Store and Ice House complete mouth-watering menu is online at HayesCityStoreTX.com. Also, as we say, check out Taste on Main, their new location. It's not the same as Hayes City. It's the same owners, Tamara and Travis Tyndall. They've opened up a beautiful steakhouse, oysters, seafood, raw bar right on Main Street in downtown Buda. That's called Taste on Main. Either or, you can't beat it, right? It's Hayes City Store for your big gatherings and just a night out to enjoy it, live music. Taste, a little nicer. Go take your anniversary there. Go to a birthday, whatever it might be, special occasion. Do it at Taste on Main in Buda. All right, Mike, we'll get back to the Texas football chatter in a minute. The Longhorns win over Rice 37-10. Also, before the end of the show, we're going to get Mike's thoughts on the big games from around the state of Texas. You were in Fort Worth for the big one with Colorado upsetting TCU. Can't wait to talk to you about that. But real quick, in our halftime, presented by our friends at One Source Gas, delivered with just the right pressure by One Source Gas, your one-stop shop in Central Texas for all gas products. Halftime, as the dust has settled on cutdown day, more than 30 Longhorns made rosters all over the NFL, Mike. Over 30. They had 41 in camp, 31 made rosters. Of note, Colt McCoy, not one of them. Colt McCoy did not make the Arizona Cardinals, who we believe are tanking their season. They're trying to lose football games. They have every intention of drafting Caleb Williams next April, and that's why you cut a veteran like Colt for a dude like Joshua Dobbs, right? That's why you do that.
Yeah, that is why you do that. Shout out to Colt McCoy, though, for running that game for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, backup money in the NFL, get that pension.
Good bread.
I mean, that's not a bad job if you can get it. Good for
And
him.
hopefully he lands somewhere, but maybe he's done 36.
Yeah.
Maybe he's done. Made a lot of money. And, Arizona, he was too competent for the Cardinals. This guy might rally the troops and win a game or two that we don't want to win. We're going to avoid that, so we're cutting Colt. We're going to keep Josh Dobbs. And Clayton Tune, who we got to see at Houston. He's there.
Yeah.
And he's an interesting player. But Arizona
Friday Night
also.
Tykes, right?
What's that?
He was on Friday Night Tykes, right?
I don't know that
I
show.
don't think Clayton Tune was, no. He's
was
from up in DFW, I believe.
Okay.
All right, either way. All right, so Arizona has Chris Boyd, Keontae Ingram, Jeff Swaim, if you're counting. Chris Boyd, Keontae Ingram, and Jeff Swaim. Atlanta, Taquan Graham, and a guy named Bijan,
A guy named Bijan.
who in a fantasy football draft I was in on Friday night went number 1 overall. There was a group of Texas graduates.
Sure.
But Bijan went number 1 overall. He is the current odds favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year with the Atlanta Falcons, wearing Michael Vick's old number 7. Baltimore's got Devin Duvernay and Justin Tucker. Tucker's quite simply the greatest kicker in NFL history from Westlake, right here in our neighborhood where we record our podcast.
It's Kicker U. You're the best punter, best kicker in NFL history here in Austin.
And I love Devin Duvernay. He didn't get a lot of coaching at Texas when he was here. He kind of had to. I remember Quan Cosby always telling me that he kind of has to coach himself. He's not getting much from this group. And there he is, still playing in the National Football League. Buffalo, Poona Ford. Watch Poona Ford this year. They need some help in their interior next to Ed Oliver.
Yeah.
And Poona Ford's going to bring that. He's just a lunch pail dude. Carolina picked up Deshaun Jameson. The 49ers released Deshaun. He had a great camp, but San Francisco is just too damn talented. And so Carolina, good spot for him, I think, Mike, because he's, that's a team that's looking to build young, and Deshaun flashed in the preseason. And he's going to help on special teams, too. Chicago, Deontay Foreman and Roshan Johnson, the double-barrel backfield of Chicago Bears. That's good. Joseph Osai's got a bit of an injury, but he's in Cincinnati. Had a good training camp. Cleveland has Marquise Goodwin now. Denver has P.J. Locke and Caden Stearns. Houston, Texans, Hassan Ridgeway, the Green Mile. Also, Andrew Beck. And Andrew Beck's going to play for the Texans because they're running that Kyle Shanahan system. Think Juszczyk in San Francisco. Andrew Beck's going to be that H-back, fullback guy for the Texans in front of Damian Pierce this year. Find a pretty good offensive line, too. By the way, Texans fans, Kenyon Green, not going to play this year. Out. That's a tough one. He was the 15th pick of the draft out of A&M, and it's going to be 2 years now that he's missed most of. That's not good.
That's not good.
And-
I'm out of my depth here in this NFL conversation.
I know.
I'm letting you carry this.
I know. And Juice Scruggs, they drafted out of Penn State, who also got hurt. So Texans, they think their offensive line's going to be good, but it wasn't good for their health. Sam Ehlinger has landed as the third-team quarterback in Indianapolis, where he'll play behind Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew. Kansas City, Condre Coburn made the team, actually had a good camp in Kansas City, and the Chiefs have Chris Jones holding out. So,
Yep.
Shane Buechele make the team?
What's that?
Shane Buechele's still on the team,
No, he didn't.
No.
He did not make that team. I don't know if he got picked up either. But Cameron Dicker is the starting kicker for your L.A. Chargers because he beat out Dustin Hopkins, who was traded to Cleveland. So Dicker, the kicker out of Lake Travis, is in. Deshaun Elliott is in Miami, along with Brandon Jones and Connor Williams. Minnesota has Jordan Hicks. New England has Calvin Anderson from Westlake High, Adrian Phillips, and Brendan Schooler. We all saw Brendan Schooler here, thought he's going to be in the NFL, but no, there he is. Malcolm Roach is kind of a problem. He's a disruptive force on the New Orleans defense. Philadelphia has more Ojimo, who made that team. You get drafted in the 7th round and make that Eagles team. That means you had a good camp, Mike, because that is a talented team, especially on that part of the side of the ball. Their defense has a ton of dudes. You mentioned Michael Dixon, best punter in the NFL. He and Quandre Diggs are still Seattle Seahawks. Washington has Samuel Cosmi. And there you go. That's your Longhorns in the NFL on halftime. Brought to you by our friends at One Source Gas. Keeping your eyes on the roster tracker, One Source Gas is your Texas compressed gas leader. One Source Gas provides compressed gas needs such as CO2, nitrogen, oxygen, and propane, and many more to various industries throughout the great state, all over Central Texas. They are your leader in CO2 for the service industry. So if you have a bar or restaurant, you got to have that CO2 for your tap beers. Hospitality industry, also serving the medical industry with my good buddy Richard Streever. One Source Gas is locally owned and operated, has been for a dozen years now. They understand that exceptional customer service is the key when providing products to run your business. So, OneSourceGasATX.com. That's the website, OneSourceGasATX.com. Or call Richard at 512-214-8484. By the way, one is spelled out, O-N-E, OneSourceGasATX.com. All right, time for our third quarter, brought to you by my friend Dr. Greg Eckert. You got my nice 40 Acres Apparel shirt, Mike. By my next episode, No, by next week's first episode, I'll have a brand new smile from Dr. Eckert. I'm going in. I'm going in. One smile, new smile in one day with Dr. Greg Eckert. I'm going to be might be flashing the might scare you a little bit next week.
Get a grill?
Well, I'm not going to grill, Tom Herman. We're getting some work done. Turns out I grind my teeth when I sleep, and so I now have a mouthpiece, but it's been too long, so I've worn down my teeth. We're going to go in and rebuild them a little bit, get them back to the size they should be, and that's going to be fun. Then I'll tell you all about Dr. Eckert. We'll be able to show you the pearly whites, Mike. Yeah, man. Making that happen at 50 years old. But we'll tell you about Dr. Eckert coming up. But let's talk third quarter, and it's all about the offense. Back to that and that side of the ball, Mike, because, Texas sputtered early, so Texas fans are panicked. They're seeing a little bit of the same Quinn Ewers from a year ago. I thought you put it in great perspective. There were some missed assignments, there were some missed plays, there were some opportunities missed. What do you say to Longhorn fans who are already in a panic that Malik Murphy needs to be playing quarterback and Quinn's not the guy? He's not going to get it done. What say you?
I say that you can win a Big 12 championship and possibly get into the college football playoff with Quinn Ewers being a guy who doesn't complete many passes 20-plus yards downfield. Right, Texas has enough weapons in the short passing game with the tight ends, with Xavier Worthy after the catch, Jordan Whittington over the middle, the running backs coming along the season, that great offensive line. The defense, what we just spent 15 minutes talking about, like Quinn Ewers doesn't need to be Trevor Lawrence. He doesn't have to be the guy that leads Texas to a national championship. Maybe it's one of these things that everybody else leads Texas to a national championship, and Quinn just drives the bus. And when you look at a five-star guy who was rated as highly as he was out of high school, I think you put the pressure on him to be that guy and to be a Heisman Trophy finalist and to lead the league in passing and to be a top 5 draft pick. But maybe he's not. Maybe he is. And we'll find that out more and more as this season goes on. But I don't think they need Quinn Ewers to be Vince Young to win a lot of football games. He can be more Colt McCoy. And Colt McCoy had some, holes in his game that they were able to coach around and figure out a way to go about this. This is on Sark. If Quinn Ewers ends up being a guy that he's just not a deep field guy, it's on Sark to hide that and figure out a way for that offense to move in spite of his shortcomings.
Well, and he's shown the ability out of RPO to execute at a high level in the quick passing game. Yeah. That was the third quarter. Quick decisions, quick reads, quick throws. You have the talent to do it. But Sark, even after the game on Saturday, said, we got to take our deep shots. We have to. And we'll hear Sark coming up on the deep shots. But let me play one thing from Sark on Saturday that I think people, this is good because this is something I complained to Sark about last year and criticized Sark for. Because when he's the head coach and he's the offensive coordinator, when Quinn was coming off the field having bad series, there's no one to talk to him. Sark's got to be in the headset coaching the team. And so here's Sark talking about A.J. Milwee, the offensive coordinator or quarterback coach, has come down from the booth, and he's on the sidelines now.
I thought for the most part he did. I thought there were moments where, I don't know if you guys noticed today, but Coach Milwee was on the field for us this year. So he's kind of down having his position coach on the field, and Coach Jackson was upstairs. So I thought Coach Milwee and he have good rapport, and I thought that helped when things maybe got a little uneasy, when the protection wasn't quite as good as we would have liked it to have been. I thought he got himself kind of recentered, and that was a real positive for me because a year ago, he got sacked a couple times there at the end of the first half. I don't know what might have happened coming out into the second half. Today, he comes out in the second half, looked much more comfortable, so he was able to recenter himself, which I think shows a lot of maturity on Quinn's part. But I think also having that rapport, having Coach Milwee on the field, I think was helpful as well.
All right, there's Sark. So A.J. Milwee on the field. There's still some issues. They're going to take their deep shots. Quinn Ewers, and here's where the criticism comes. Quinn Ewers threw 6 passes on Saturday of 25 yards or more, air yards. Completed 0. Yep. None of them. And let's hear Sark today. This was at his press conference today. What we just played you was from Saturday after the game. This was from today, where Sark, again, was asked about the deep ball. And we saw it last year. Fans get frustrated, think the Oklahoma State game. And we also know that the Washington defensive coordinator pretty much put it out there ahead of the Alamo Bowl that, we're going to play our DBs back, and Sark won't be patient and just take the underneath stuff. He's going to always force a deep ball. And if we saw the game Saturday, a lot of times that deep ball's come on first downs. And then it's 2nd and 10, and then you're against the chains, and the Longhorns were so the deep shots they're going to be there, kind of do it in a more natural flow is what people would say. But Quinn didn't hit them. After watching the tape, here was Sark today when talking about these deep shots and what needs to get fixed.
I know the quarterback takes a lot of the brunt of when things aren't just clicking smoothly on offense, but we blew some protections that weren't on him, and he took some unnecessary hits and sacks that weren't on him. We didn't run a couple routes very well, especially on a couple deep balls when you go back and watch the tape, and how we ran them. And then the throw looks errant, but quite frankly, the route wasn't exactly where it was supposed to be either. And so, but that's the life you live as a quarterback, right? You assume the blame, right? And then you give the praise when it's good. And so, but for Quinn, that didn't rattle him. You know, we got back at halftime, we got things kind of rectified, and came out and played a really clean first 3 drives there in the second half. So I think that he's in a good space and ready to go.
All right, so there's Sark. It's not all Quinn, and he's always going to protect Quinn, but you know, I charted the 6 that he threw 25 or more. The 2 down the right side, the deep ones to Xavier Worthy, were just bad throws. Right? The first one was underthrown, and he took too long. Footwork wasn't right, and he waited half a hitch, and X-Man so fast, he couldn't throw it far enough. The second one was going to be open. It was off a play action, off of a run look, and, you know, if he throws a good ball, you know, X-Man's running away from his guy on a hitch and go, and this is house call. And it drifted out of bounds. X-Man tried to go get it, and it just took him out of bounds. Those two were on Quinn in my mind. But then he had one that he tried to throw it to a Donnie Mitchell down the left side in the second half that was there. Actually, it was in the first half, approaching halftime. It was there, but he got hit in the mouth right as he threw the ball, and it threw the ball off to the other shoulder, and Adani wasn't able to get to it and readjust to it. He had one where he tried to force a ball to Jatavion Sanders on a 3rd and 18, and he was just trying to use that rifle to gun one in there, but, you know, it was into double coverage. It wasn't going to happen. He also had another one where he rolled to his right and tried to throw to the pylon, let Jatavion Sanders make a play, incomplete. So, again, I agree with Sark that some of it was protection, some of it was route. But, again, pretty clear, to your point, Mike, Sark's going to take his shots. He just is. And he's going to force the shots because it's a part of his offense, whether that's good or bad. But we saw, again, you know, gosh, you were at the Colorado game. You had Shedeur Sanders throw for over 500 yards. How many passes did he throw down the field? Not many.
Not many, right? You get the ball into your best player's hands, and then they go get all the yards, and then you get a school record for 510 yards, and you probably threw it for like 200 in the air, right? And so, like, that's why I mean, like, this is on Sark. Like, it's on Sark to get away from his need to push the ball down the field all the time. But those vertical routes sometimes play their part, even if it's not completed, right? Some of it's just getting the safety back, right? Some of it's just putting that threat on the tape and on the field and in the cornerback's mind that you can get beat behind you, because that's like the biggest fear of every cornerback, right, is getting burnt down the field. And so you put it in his mind, and that opens up those short and intermediate routes, even if it's not connected. I'm kind of at the point where, like, this is just like Quinn's negative. You know, like, this is just his Achilles heel, is he's just not a great vertical thrower. Now, that doesn't mean he can't get better at it, but right now, that's just the thing he struggles with.
Well, we call it the deep ball dilemma because Sark wants to throw them because it's a staple part of his offense, and Quinn may not be very good at it. And herein lies the loggerheads we're at. But second half, they go through win quick game, and everything was short and quick out of his hand, and it all looked good. They scored 21 points and got a little rhythm. Also, I'll say this on the offensive line. There was a point, we should say in this point, that Cole Hudson didn't play in the game. Cole Hudson got dinged up a little bit. He was your starting right guard all last year. He didn't play. DJ Campbell struggled at times, especially in the pass pro. He just didn't look great. And then he got bull rushed at one time, and they switched Hayden Connor over to the right side. They brought in Neto, you say his last name, out of Umeazolo. The left, who by the way, Neto wasn't on the depth chart, which turned out to be a clerical error. Blame it on John Bianco and the staff because Kyle Flood was quick to say, "Wait, no." Because when he's not on the depth chart on a Saturday morning, everybody's like, "Oh no, was he freaking out? Is he transferring? What's up?" But Neto was there, and he went in to play left guard. And they slid Hayden Connor to right, and that's when the C.J. Baxter run hit, and that's when the offensive line started to play a little better. So you wonder if Cole Hudson's coming back or if they stick with some of that to try to go to Alabama and get your best 5 on the field. We'll see. But here's Sark today. Can we play this, Nolan, from the press conference today? Pretty clearly after watching the film, wasn't real happy with his offensive line and their lack of physicality. That you were concerned, I know, out there that Texas couldn't push around Rice, and so was Sark.
You know, I thought Christian Jones had a nice game at tackle. He's probably the cleanest performer on the offensive line. I felt like the rest of the guys kind of took turns with some simple errors, things that reverted back to kind of training camp stuff that, like I said, I knew we could fix and that we'll get fixed this week. The thing I didn't love our physicality. I feel like we're a more physical football team than the way we played. And so that's a real challenge to our guys. There's a style and manner in which we want to play the game up front. And we've got to become more physical. We've got to play more physical. And I think that comes when you remove some of the hesitation. Like I said Saturday after the ball game, I felt like we were a little bit slow and a little bit hesitant trying to kind of diagnose what we were trying to do up front. And in reality, we got to go cut it loose, and we got to play a brand and style of football that is ours.
All right, there it is. Not as physical as they needed to be, and that's absolutely clear. But, Mike, as you pointed out, this was a Rice defense that had 8 months to prepare. They threw some things at Texas they didn't expect. They got it under control, and they still won going away. And if not for being one-sided and 160 degrees in the fourth quarter, they probably win by a much larger number. Doesn't mean they can't go to Alabama and play a really good game up front, because a lot to coach on this week, as you just heard from Sark.
I feel like we always get in this thing with sports where we think like every game is an indicator of how the next game will be, and it's just not how it works. It's just like a random generated deal. And had Texas come out and beat Rice 70-3, that doesn't mean that they're going to play any better than they would in week 2 against Alabama as if they won 37-10. And so week 2 offers them an ability to come out and play a full four-quarter football game. And as we saw last year against Alabama, Texas matched up really well physically.
Yes.
I mean, it came down to just Bryce Young being Bryce Young and making a couple of plays that Texas couldn't offensively, and that was the difference in the game. And it's going to be that way again, right? If this goes right, it's going to come down to 3, 4, 5 plays. And it's just going to be whether the players step up in those moments or if the other team's players step up in those moments. And there's not a lot that you can analyze for that or predict for that. You've done all the work over the offseason. You just hope they come up big in those clutch moments in a close game.
All right, that's going to do it for our third quarter. Coming up, it'll be our Final Four, the 4 big conversations coming out of the college football weekend around the Big 12, around the country. I want to tell you that the third quarter was brought to you by Dr. Greg Eckert. That's Eckert with a U, U-E-C-K-E-R-T. He's been Austin's dentist and Central Texas dentist for almost 30 years now. But he rides his cycle his bicycle, so he is in such good shape. He's in his 50s, but gosh, look like he looks younger than all of us. Dr. Greg Eckert's the best. I'm going to get in there and get my new smile by next Monday's episode. I'm excited to show it to you, and you get in there. You can get a new smile in one day with Dr. Greg Eckert. 345-3166. Also the Brain Vault, which he has been working with his NFL partner, the NFL agent Drew Pittman. The Brain Vault technology, the mouthpiece that helps minimize concussive forces and concussions, not just for football players, but cheerleaders, lacrosse players, soccer, any contact sport. You need Brain Vault to play hard but play safe. And it's proven to work to minimize concussive forces by aligning that jaw position and strengthening your neck muscles to minimize the issues there. Talk to Dr. Eckert for your smile, your basic dental hygiene, or for the Brain Vault at brainvault.com. They bring you the third quarter. Time for our fourth quarter and the final 4 big conversations of the week. It's presented by Access Discount Healthcare. And Mike, the big conversations coming out of the weekend. Big 12 went 10-4 of their 14 games. 3 of those 4 losses were really hard to believe. One was not. West Virginia got whacked by Penn State. Not surprising. Penn State looks really good, by the way. They're the 7th-ranked team in the country. Wyoming shocked Texas Tech in overtime. Joey McGuire's team, they had a weather delay because of a storm in Laramie, and then they took control of the game early, but then Wyoming came back, won the game 34-33 in overtime. They converted a 2-point conversion when Texas Tech could not in the overtime sessions. And then Texas State went into Waco, Mike, and posted the program's first ever win over a Power 5 team, 42-34. First-year head coach G.J. Kinney, his quarterback T.J. Finley, beat Dave Aranda's Baylor Bears. And then we're going to get to your game in a minute. But give me, of those 2, which is the most shocking thing you saw?
Yeah, I mean, that Texas State win at Baylor was the most shocking thing I saw in college football on Saturday. And that includes Deion Sanders going into Fort Worth and winning that football game. Texas State shouldn't be able to compete with Baylor. You know, Baylor's in their 4th year under Dave Aranda and that head coach. You know, Texas State added 50, 60-plus new players to that team. What Week 1 taught us is that the portal isn't some boogeyman that we should be scared of. Colorado looked great. SMU looked great. Texas State looked great. Those are 3 of the top 5 or 6 transfer incoming programs in the nation this year. And so those teams look good. G.J. Kinney's going to be a star. I mean, he's going to be an absolute superstar. And there's some questions in Waco, right? Because, like, you look at Baylor's schedule, and they got Utah on Saturday. Then they have Rhode Island. Then they have Texas, UCF, and Texas Tech. There's a way, a pretty feasible way, that Baylor's 1-5 after their first 6 seasons.
Yeah, well, Utah would
first
be a
6
tough one
games.
this week.
And so, there's some danger zone situation happening for Baylor, and Blake Shapen's out for the next couple weeks because of an MCL thing. So it'll be interesting to watch Baylor. Texas Tech has an opportunity this Saturday at home against Oregon to kind of come out and figure it out, and they get that win. It feels like 1-1 was where they were going to be anyway. The big worry for Joey McGuire is he's 1-5 on the road.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to figure that part out.
Well, everything goes through Lubbock.
Yeah,
Everything
well, he
runs
wasn't
through
in Lubbock.
I know.
He wasn't in Lubbock. He's right. If it's in Lubbock, it runs through there. It's outside of Lubbock where the shine wears off a little bit.
That's a tough loss. Now, that's a like opponent because Texas plays Wyoming in 2 weeks. What did you see from Wyoming? I thought they looked pretty sharp. Their defense is pretty good. Linebacker play. I mean, Texas should beat them, but at the same time, Wyoming at home with a weather delay and some funky circumstances, showed out.
Yeah, and I mean, people don't think of Laramie as like up Mile High or whatever. That's 7,200 feet that football stadium is. So playing Wyoming at night in week 1 is different than playing them in Austin in week 3. And so I don't think Texas is going to have as many problems with them. But that was more about Texas Tech. They came out, they were up 17-0. That's on them for not closing them off and winning that football game that they should go and win.
All right. So the game you were at, you tell folks that for Dave Campbell's Texas football, you're going to a different stadium in Texas for a game every week, and you started with a good one, to say the least. TCU in the national championship game a year ago, Colorado went 1-11. You mentioned 51 transfer players in through the portal for Deion Sanders, including his son, who's a pretty good quarterback, and they held on for a thrilling 45-42 win.
Travis Hunter's performance in that game is a top 5 college football performance I've ever seen in my life. He played nearly 130 snaps. Something like 65 on offense, 65 on defense. He caught a touchdown pass. He had an interception. Had he not dropped 2, he could have had 2 touchdown passes and 2 touchdown catches and 2 interceptions. The interception he made on the 3 or 4 yard line, whatever that was on that 3rd and 1 play, was probably the difference in the game. He kind of came off the guy he was supposed to get, showed his instincts, and went and got that interception. Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback, looked excellent. But again, I think that was more TCU, right? Like Kendall Briles' game plan was awful. Colorado's not good up front. You just line up and you smash them. They average 7 yards a run, but they threw the ball 5 or 6 more times than they ran it. I would have just shown up and ran. And then the defensive core, they allowed 510 passing yards to Colorado. And so TCU's quietly lost 3 of their last 4.
Yeah, they have. And the Georgia game was a smashing. They lost to K-State in the Big 12 championship game. Did win that Michigan thriller, but lost this one. I was impressed. Travis Hunter, Deion Sanders has said he thinks his goal is to be Shohei Ohtani and play both ways in the NFL. That's not, but he wants to play offense and cornerback.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's possible. Our buddy Rod Babers doesn't think that's possible. We'll see.
I didn't think it was possible to do it at Power 5 football.
Right, and he did it. And he is something else, man. Corner, and they went right at the All Big 12 corner, Josh Newton, right at him. Like they weren't afraid of him at all. And Travis Hunter took him to school. That's a dynamic team. Now, Colorado plays Nebraska this week.
I think Nebraska is a tougher matchup for him.
Yeah.
Because, Colorado's Achilles heel this year, in my opinion, is just going to be people lining up and smashing them in the face.
Which is what Nebraska will do.
And I thought that's what TCU would do, and they didn't do it. Nebraska, that's all they know. That's all Matt Rule likes to do, is to get into those body blow fights. And so, I would lean Nebraska more this week, but an incredible performance. One that completely shocked me. I'm still surprised. I was there and I saw it and can still barely believe that they won.
How was
TCU.
the Deion press conference? Because we played a lot of sound from it this morning. He's Deion. He's going to tell you, I told you so.
It started before the game. He shows up in front of the team bus in a Mercedes extended SUV, gets out of it.
Prime time.
Right, and all of a sudden his security and some police officers get out and start moving photographers out of the way. There's only 10 photographers. There's not like there was 1,000 people. They start moving them out of the way, and then he comes out on the field about an hour before the game, and he does a lap, and he's flanked by Texas sheriffs walking around, even though there's children on the field. Nobody's under any threat, right? And he's got
he's
people
creating the scene.
Yeah, Sonny Dykes is just standing in the middle of the field by himself, and then Deion's walking around with an armed guard security around him. He's good for college football. College football needs some of that. And the Big 12 needs some of that, right? The Big 12 is losing Texas and Oklahoma. They're trying to develop kind of an identity and who they're going to be post Big 12. Having Deion in your conference, whether it's for a couple of years or for 10 years or whatever, will put eyeballs on there. You will care what happens to Deion week in and week out, whether you hate him or you love him. And I love characters like that. We've talked about my fondness for the WWE many times on this show. Deion kind of brings that showmanship element to college athletics that I think is what separates it from the NFL and makes it good.
I don't disagree. And I'll say, Deion will say, I told you so. I was the one openly questioning why Auburn wasn't going to hire Deion Sanders when they had an opening. Why would Auburn not hire that guy? In Alabama, he's at Jackson State. You're trying to beat Nick Saban, and you're trying to compete in the SEC. What are you doing hiring Hugh Freeze? Why would you do that? Well, this guy's sitting right here in your backyard. Yeah. And you don't think he could do the same thing or better at Auburn than he could have? He had to talk to a lot of these kids to come to the mountains. They've never been to the mountains. Yeah. They're playing a mile high. But what's Auburn thinking? Like any program, especially one in the SEC, that's trying to find an identity that's separate from Nick Saban in Alabama, Brian Kelly in Georgia, or in LSU, Kirby Smart. Why wouldn't you? I still don't get that.
I mean, my long answer would be about prejudice.
Yes,
right?
Okay.
My short answer is that we all tend to go down with the ship on decisions that have been made routinely rather than making new decisions that may fail. We'd rather fail with a decision we've seen work a few times.
Comfortable.
Right. Than take a chance and be the guy who fails miserably or fails in a new way. You see that in the NFL with the type of quarterbacks that they drafted forever. And it started to change with Bryce Young and guys who have made that dent differently. But for a long time, it was just you draft the 6'5", 220-pound pocket passer, and we see so many busts because of that.
Bill Parcells,
right.
The perfect quarterback.
Yeah. Right. And so, I think with Deion, he's going to do it differently. He's going to do it new. His X's and O's are going to be more the coordinators, and he's more of kind of the showman, head of the business. And Auburn's still in the deep South, and sometimes Deion is a little bit brash, and that doesn't particularly play well with everybody. And so I bet they're kicking themselves a little bit. And for me, I guess he's just waiting on the Florida State job, probably. Whenever Norvell goes to Alabama or something, when Nick Saban retires, he'll end up taking over Florida State. But he made a believer out of me. I was with you. Or I guess I was on the opposite side of you. I kind of didn't know how this was going to go.
I didn't either.
It was excellent.
I thought it was a great hire for Colorado. I didn't think they'd win that game.
Right.
I picked TCU. I just didn't think you could rebuild an entire roster on the fly. And I thought, to your point, their lines of scrimmage were going to struggle, and they were able to cover it up with the short passing game. But yeah, TCU, that spoke a lot about TCU to me. But I still think Colorado in that tough Pac-12. By the way, Pac-12 went 12-0 this weekend. They didn't lose a game. We talked about the best quarterback conference. It's the Pac-12 with Caleb Williams and Bo Nix and when Cam Rising comes back at Utah with DJ Uiagalelei and Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I mean, they can ball. They could still lose 4 or 5 games in the Pac-12. That's still there. But the win, it just set the tone. No one will pay attention. The fact they won that game against a team that played in the national championship game when everyone said they couldn't do it, and Deion got to say, "I told you so." I mean, that was huge stuff. You were at history, I believe.
Yeah, I'm going to keep that media credential and probably hold on to that one, right? Because it did seem like a seismic moment in college football of this happening, and we're probably going to look back on it for a while.
Well, and everything Deion did and G.J. Kinney did at Texas State couldn't have happened a few years ago.
Right.
So people say, well, it's novel. Well, you weren't allowed to do it. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't bring in 52 new players.
And we wondered how it would work. Could you even do it? How much does cohesion matter? Is this college football? You're supposed to bring them in and work, they didn't have. I think they had one procedural penalty.
Yeah,
they played a clean football game.
Oh, and they came out aggressive. If you could get a chance, look it up online. Deion's pregame speech was
electric.
I mean, those guys were so fired up to go play football for that guy. It was awesome. Deion was great. All right, so also real quick, go ahead, Noel.
One thing about the Travis Hunter performance, the more impressive thing to me is when you see a guy have a game like that. You see him after the game with some ice on his knee, maybe. He's got his pads off. He's resting. We see videos after the game, and he's in the middle of the locker room dancing, hyping up his team like he didn't play a snap.
Yeah, he played.
To be young.
Yeah. What did you say, 130 snaps?
It was closer to 140, yeah.
Jeez. He is such a talent. Remember, number 1 recruit in the nation. So this isn't like a fluke. This guy was the best player in the country who went to Jackson State to play for Deion, now followed into Colorado. He is something else. Also around the state of Texas, real quick, Mike, Houston held on to top UTSA 17-14. I found out from you that I've now said that the uniforms they wore, the Houston Oilers color scheme, as an old Houston Oiler, my first love, the Oilers. Broke my heart. Broke my heart, Bud Adams. To wear those uniforms, I don't know why they ever would not wear those uniforms. Why go back to the red and white? that becomes their identity. The city of Houston will love them. People like me who are longing for the Oilers and those colors, I will root for them just because they're wearing those uniforms. Brilliant marketing.
Yeah, it was brilliant marketing. They had a haggle with the Titans behind the scenes.
And you said you had that story for months, and you had
it for months. I mean, I was up there in June, and Pesman, the athletic director, knows I'm a big Oilers fan. I was in Houston when Pez played at Houston, right? He was a linebacker for Houston back in the early 90s. And so we were just talking about the Oilers, and he was like, dude, do I have something for you? And he showed me those photos, and he told me he was kind of haggling still with the Titans in the NFL. So he wasn't 100% sure they could pull it off, but they had already made the order, so they were going to figure out how to do it. And it was I told you before the show, it was like the hardest thing I've ever held on to, because most of the time,
as far as the story goes,
yeah, most of the time you get some news and like nobody cares. Like my friends wouldn't really care about like what's happening at Rice or something, right? But we all grew up as Oilers fans, or at least a lot of us. I mean, I grew up I lived in Houston for 5 or 6 years of my elementary school. I was 9 when they left. My uncle Will Fuhrer played for the Oilers, and so it was a big deal for me too. And I couldn't talk to anybody about it, and so that was really hard until it happened.
They should wear them every time. But they won 17-14. What'd you take from their defense? Better than you think, because Frank Harris is a good quarterback.
Yeah, Frank Harris is a good quarterback. He threw 3 interceptions. It's probably the worst I've seen him play since Jeff Traylor was there. But he's a guy who had 4 surgeries on the same knee since the bowl game and didn't throw a football between December and July. I think there was some rust associated there. It was a big win for Dana Holgorsen. You lose that game and you're staring 3-9 or 4-8 down the barrel. Now maybe you catch some momentum and try to get to 6-6, 7-5.
Anything else stand out? I noted that Sam Houston State played BYU into a 14-0 loss, but they still were in the game. What else stood out for you around the state of Texas? And we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest disappointment, next to maybe Baylor and some of those Big 12 teams, was North Texas. First game under Eric Morris. They're playing against Cal at home, and you just you put that up against what G.J. Kinney and Texas State looked like in their first game, and you look at what Eric Morris and North Texas looked like in their first game. They got outscored 44-7 kind of in the second half and in the late second quarter there against Cal. The line was only 5, and they just got absolutely blown out. And I think one of the things we took from week 1 is that the transfers were a good thing. North Texas kind of went with the roster that they had for the most part, whereas Texas State completely turned it over, and Texas State played a lot better.
Yeah, and Texas State, G.J. Kinney brought in a lot of guys who played D1, high D1, Arkansas, Oklahoma.
And he brought in a lot of FCS players, too.
Yeah, he did.
Like his offensive line is 4 former FCS players.
From Incarnate Word, right?
Yeah, and Colorado with a lot of FCS players and stuff. And so I think also not only was it a win for the transfer portal, I think it was a win for FCS football and the talent that's down there.
I think it's interesting that that's hard to do. To bring in that many players, you have to identify character, you have to identify talent, you have to identify fit. And that's hard to do. And that's why a lot of people doubted Dion or were wondering. Same with G.J. Kinney. So far, so good. But they'll get more tape on them. It's a long season, just like Texas. It's a one-game snapshot. Don't overreact either direction. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Let's tell you that our fourth quarter is brought to you by something you need to know. If prescription drug costs are heavy, you're just trying to cut budget on anything, right? Whether your mortgage is rising, your interest rates are going up, everything costs more. Access Discount Healthcare. Access Discount Healthcare. The website is yourfreerxdrugs.com. Yourfreerxdrugs.com. This is a Netflix-style prescription drug benefit plan. It's not an insurance card. This is not part of your insurance. This is just like Netflix. You sign up for it and you get the prescriptions you need. It is so simple to use. Subscriptions $21.99 a month for an individual, $26.99 for 2 people in a family, a couple, and then $31.99 for a family of 3 or more, and as many as you need. If you got 5 kids, that's fine. As long as you live at the same address, it's $31.99. And the prescriptions, listen, we're talking about 96% of prescription drugs available through this service. Prescriptions can be mailed directly to you or picked up at over 64,000 pharmacies like Walgreens, CVS, and others. And you go to the website and find out if your drugs are available, the prescriptions you need. And then if you and your families are paying more than $21 a month, $31 a month for prescriptions on the monthly basis and annually, this platform will save you a lot of money. And again, over 1.5 million Americans are already using the platform. They've already collectively saved over $100 million. And this is the important part, I think, that really shows you how great this is. It's a month-to-month service. You can drop it anytime. There's no long-term contract. The retention rate at yourfreerxdrugs.com is 98%. No one gets rid of it once they have it, I promise you. Not insurance, not a discount card. It's yourfreerxdrugs.com. To sign up and learn more, go to that website and get it going, yourfreerxdrugs.com. That's a wrap on another edition of the Eyes on Texas multicast. Mike, that was awesome. Look forward to more games. We'll do this again on Thursday and get a full deep dive preview into the Alabama game. Let me ask you this. What's your early thought on Texas plus 7.5?
Yeah, my early thought is to take the points in Texas. I think week 2 is a really good place to gamble because you can react to the overreactions. And if week 1 didn't happen, Texas is probably a 4.5, a 5-point underdog. The fact that they didn't blow out Rice, I think, moves that to 7.5 or so. And so you can get a full touchdown with Texas. I would take that.
Agreed. We'll talk more about it Thursday into Friday. We'll record it Thursday. It'll drop Friday ahead of the game. Do want to thank everybody, all of our partners. Grande Equipment, of course. Our friends at 40 Acres Apparel at the Co-op with this great-looking shirt I've got. And we are a product of the Republic of Football and Dave Campbell's Texas Football Podcast Network. We're powered by Grande. Thank you to our digital producer, Nolan Hogan, our executive producer, Griffin Hogan. Their incredible work again this week. Thanks again to our founding partners as well at TexasMortgageGuy.com, Carlos Carrion, Hayes City Store, One Source Gas, Dr. Greg Eckert. I'll have that brand new smile by next week. It's the multicast that keeps you on top of all things Texas football, available weekly. To watch it on YouTube on the Dave Campbell's and the Horn and Austin YouTube pages, and available for download, iTunes and Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Have a great week. Until our next episode coming up, dropping Friday, hook 'em.